Hello and welcome to another episode of our Soul Chats with Teri and Tatjana. We are happy that we can be there with you today and talk about the issue of trust. And when I say issue, actually we are not going to talk about the trust issues as in relationships or psychological point of view, but rather from the spiritual point of view. So it is all about, do you trust your intuition? Do you trust your gut feeling? Do you trust life in general? Do you trust the invisible, universal God source in life? So this is what we are going to discuss today, and feel free to again comment or give us any tips for any other topics for future soul chats.
Thank you, Teri, for this beautiful introduction. And yes, trust. Who doesn't trust life to its fullest? And especially when we go through really difficult times, it's the hardest to trust our gut feeling and the intuition at that moment, because that's when we question a lot. That's when some people call psychics at that moment and want to know what's going to happen. Am I going to get this job? Am I going to meet Mr. Nice Guy, Prince Charming, or Princess Charming, maybe?
Yes, Tatjana, so you are right. As you say, question of trust comes in our daily lives. And we also have choices. So we always have a choice, trust or not to trust. Or what or who are you going to trust? And then your life can change like this if you do this or that decision. So trust is very much connected in where your life is heading. And it's also very connected to your soul, because your soul is your biggest and greatest guide. And we don't often listen to it, or this inner voice that is guiding us as well. It's our inner compass in life, right? We are like a ship and we need to trust the compass, or we need to trust the captain. And there is also a question of how to differ between trusting your gut or choosing rather the logical mind or the conscious mind. And I know you have some experience with that, that is just mind-blowing. So I would like you to share that with us, because I think it's a very good example of, in this case, the trusting your gut, working alongside your conscious mind.
Yes, Teri, this is the very first time I'm sharing this story publicly. I lived for a few years in Michigan, and at some point, the company that hired my husband in Michigan was about to close, and we had to go back to Switzerland. And so arrangements were made for the flight and everything. And because we owned a house in Michigan, it needed to be sold before everyone was able to move. And so we decided that my husband and my oldest son would go first to Geneva so he could start school with the other pupils. And I would stay with my two other kids in Michigan until the house was sold, and then, move to Geneva later on. And so the company, as it's very custom, will book a flight or paid for a flight for us. And they have chosen, I can't remember which flight company, which was just fine. I mean, there was nothing wrong with the flight in itself. But I had this intuition, this gut feeling. I just knew that something would happen. Something would happen with a plane. And obviously, I didn't want my husband and my oldest son, something happened to them. And I pulled the world apart so that they would not fly on any other flight but Swiss Air. And why I chose Swiss Air, so this was not an intuition. My intuition was that something would happen with a plane. But consciously, I knew that Swiss Air was at that time one of the safest companies and never had a crash. And so they booked a flight on the 1st of September, 1998, with Swiss Air 111 that left from New York to Geneva. 24 hours later, Swiss Air 111, so on the 2nd of September, crashed. It was in Canada, close to Nova Scotia, if I remember correctly. And over 200 people died. So everybody on board died in that crash. And although our loss was very little because it was only the suitcases that were on that plane that crashed, if you think of it, I nearly sent my husband and my son onto the plane that crashed. So my conscious mind, the logical side of, oh, I have to save them, I want to find a solution, nearly sent them onto that plane. But my gut feeling was right.
Yes, Tatjana, it's a very sad and heartbreaking story in a way, of course, the huge tragedy that happened, but also it's interesting story to share because you did listen to your intuition, but your conscious mind, nearly, as you said, screwed it up. But is there any way to balance the intuition and the conscious mind so that they do not mess it up? You know what I mean? Because sometimes it's important to stick to the conscious mind, to the logic, but sometimes it's really important to be led by intuition. But in your case, they actually did, after all, work in synchronicity because you didn't pick that date which the accident happened.
No, I didn't. But what I would like to share is the difference between the gut feeling, which is, it's a feeling, as it says. It is something you feel. It is not something that you consciously know. So it's not a conscious thought of, oh, I'm afraid that to let go of my husband and my son. It wasn't at all like this. I wasn't afraid to let them go on a plane. That would have been a logical, very human and motherly thought. I've heard many women, many mothers say, oh, I would prefer to be with my children on the plane in case it would crash. I would be with them. This I heard many times. It wasn't a thought like that. It was a feeling. And this is how you differentiate between intuition, which is a pure feeling. You cannot explain it. And I remember when I told my husband that he would not fly with any other company but Swissair, he was like, how am I supposed to explain this to my boss? And I had no explanation whatsoever. I couldn't say why. I didn't want to scare him, obviously, but it was a gut feeling, but the logic, that was my mind interfering. And I believe it's important, if you take decisions and you have that very first feeling, that very first intuition, that's the one to go for. That's the one that gives you the information of this feels right or wrong in that case. But the logic mind will calculate and figure out which way to go, and that might be wrong.
And it's great that you mentioned the difference between how the intuition feels and how the conscious mind feels, because this is usually a question that people ask: how do I recognize the intuition from fear or the logic mind? And this is exactly it. Intuition is all about the feeling, although sometimes it could be described as knowing, because you have the feeling together with just knowing, but without any logical reasoning. So this is the difference between the gut feeling and the conscious mind or the fear-based decision. Tatjana, you gave the example of quite dramatic event, life-saving, I would say, but the intuition and the gut feeling comes to you every day in everyday situations. And I have many experiences, now less, because I learned how to trust my gut when I didn't trust my feelings. So I can give an example which just comes to my mind. We had a meeting with my friend and she brought another lady. And I was talking some private thing with my friend. And since this lady came, my body just shrank. I felt this like I'm putting the invisible guard on, and there was nothing against the lady. She was very nice, everything was good, but this was just the instant reaction that my body had. And this is also the good point, because you should always listen to your body, because your body can speak even I would say, before your feelings, because it's the instant reaction, right? So sometimes when you feel the danger approaching, your stomach can shrink, you know, these situations. Well, and my conscious mind said, oh, come on, don't be fool, keep talking. This lady, she's nice, she's asking you some stuff. And so I kept talking very openly about some private things. And it wasn't good, because then something happened. This lady talked about these things to some other person, and the whole situation became very unpleasant. So it was also a big lesson to me always to listen to these gut feeling, and not let your logical mind convince you that, oh no, this is not right, you can talk. No, always follow your feelings, and especially when your body comes to play.
Exactly. And it's actually really interesting what you're saying, because we say that the first impression of a person is usually the right one. This is what you feel of that person. And I remember an instance where I met this woman, and she was a beautiful, nice woman, but she reminded me of somebody I don't really like. And there's very few people I don't like in life, but I had a very particular reason why not to like that person in my life, because she influenced one of my family members really badly. And so this lady resembled this lady that I didn't like. And it was, again, this was my conscious mind interfering with not liking somebody. And you can have at that point a physical reaction because that person reminds you of somebody. So again, be very mindful of what comes in first. Is it your thought? This person reminds me of somebody. Or is it you physically just reacting to that person and not liking them, if you want? There is a French saying like, you cannot smell the person. And it is, you know, with the smell, we can basically get the person, their vibration, we get to know them. And if it's off, we don't like them. This is what this means.
Yes, it's a beautiful metaphor. For us, it's not really the smell, but it's some invisible instinct that it's like their energy, basically, that doesn't sit well with our energy. So it's really good to mention these everyday examples, because this also goes with trusting your gut, and then sometimes trusting your logical mind, because sometimes we tend to see the signs even where they are not. Not everything needs to be the sign, because sometimes, and this is actually our conscious mind driving us into conclusions that something is a sign when it is not a sign. So if you are wanting to see something, or if you really want to have a certain outcome of a situation, let's say, and you ask, oh, please give me a sign, sometimes you can interpret it in a wrong way.
Yes, and sometimes you can really look for it and find a reason for it. Many people know me as very analytical and very critical. And please don't get me wrong, and I will probably get attacked by a lot of people for this. If you find a feather on the floor, well, it's a sign from an angel that passed by, or I don't know, a sign from a loved one. I can take that. But me living with 3 cats, well, I will just say there is many birds flying around and they lose feathers, right? There is a high chance that one of my cats maybe attacked a bird, and that's why one of the feathers are lying around. So somebody who wants to see those feathers as a sign, where I live at least, you know, will say this was a loved one who sent me that sign. Now, I'm not saying anything to anyone who lives in a featherless home, doesn't have cats like me, and really out of nowhere, where no feather should be found, and there is one. Well, that to me, yes, could represent a sign. But I find a lot of people, just left and right, believe that it is a sign where it's initially it's not.
It's true. So in this case, I would rather first do the logical research, is this a sign or not? Because I would say, I dare to say, in less cases, it is a sign actually. In more cases, usually it is not the sign as we would wish to see. And sometimes it's good if you are asking for signs in general, you can ask, let's say, show me this sign 3 times. It's kind of the common way how to really make sure that it is a sign. But also then if you go with your gut feeling, that's also the good way to go, because sometimes you see the feather, let's say, and you just know it's a sign. And in that case, I would also say go with your gut feeling, because there is more to it, because you feel the vibration, you feel very special energy around this appearing. And again, you just know, and your logical mind cannot explain that it's a sign, but you just know it. Yeah, so it's not easy really to discern is it a sign or not, but these are also some examples of how to approach this science theory, let's say. And they do come, of course they do come, but not always it needs to be a sign. So again, I believe the healthy balance between your soul guidance and your logical mind, if these two are working in cooperation, this is the best way of how to really experience miracles in your life, in your everyday life.
I also think if you're relaxed enough and vibrate on the soul's true vibration, this is also when those incredible miracles come to you, and also when you feel it the most. So you have to relax into that vibration, and things will happen, and you will have the knowledge that this was literally a sign. But the more you're in that conscious part of your mind, which is very necessary to have in our lives, we cannot be without. The conscious mind is always there. For as long as you have your physical body, it will always be there. And it's important that it's there. But let your vibration, raise your vibration, and you will be more in tune. And the beauty in this is that a lot of coincidences or a lot of synchronicities will happen because you're in tune with the universe, with the God source, with whatever you want to call it. And that's when the magic, from my point of view, that's when it's happening.
That's beautiful, Tatjana. And I absolutely love how you describe it. And what helps really, because many people ask me, how do I get to listen to my intuition more? How do I strengthen my intuition? And it is exactly about raising this vibration. And one way, there is many tools of how you can do it. And we will definitely share this in one of our classes that we are preparing. This the intuitive development and psychic development for beginners. So watch our website soulmystics.me and watch our videos here, because we will definitely say more about this class. It's the mindfulness, being mindful. You know, nowadays you can find even on Google many mindfulness exercises, because mostly we are using our logical mind all the time, and we are not given enough space to listen and sit still with our souls. This time it's very fast paced. We always need to pay attention to something. We are requested to do things quickly. There is no natural rhythm. Basically, the natural rhythm of all the things, let's say, if you look at nature, that's the best example. You cannot want to have autumn after January. Everything has its time and you just cannot force it. But nowadays we are so much caught up in our mind and in the progress and in achievements that we completely forget about the natural cycles. And this is also one of the reasons why we are losing touch with our souls and with the spirit, with the God source. And that is why so many people are unhappy and unfulfilled despite having it all. Great career, you know, well abundant, good relationship, let's say. But sometimes if you don't have this connection with your own soul and with the spirit, with the God, with the universe, however you call it, then nothing is enough. My recommendation, do the least what you can do for yourself, and to strengthen your intuition is definitely sit with your soul. Find 10 minutes each day. I'm sure it's possible for everyone to sit still and just be quiet.
I may recommend, because I know it's, for me, it is very difficult to sit still for me. Although you can see me sitting still here, but I'm doing something. But not doing anything and just sitting is quite difficult for a lot of people. And the mind, comes in, and you have all these interferences, or what they call the monkey mind. So what I would like to throw out here is, you can connect, you can raise your vibration when you go for a walk, when you go out in nature. You don't have to sit, like this and close your eyes and meditate. You can walk in nature and find that connection and raise your vibration and become mindful at that moment. This is how I personally raise my vibration. I need to be outside. I need to be outdoors. I need to be in contact with nature, rain or sunshine or freezing cold weather as we have at this very moment. Doesn't matter. So you can do it in different ways, whichever way suits you the most. And we have a recording actually to sit in the power. If you sign up for our newsletter, you will be guided to the recording to sit in the power. So you can listen to it if you'd like to, if this is something that attracts you, or you can just go out in nature. It will do you lots of good.
I love, Tatjana, that you mentioned this, because nature is our greatest teacher, the Mother Earth. You can naturally adjust to the natural rhythm, and it's just so inspiring. And always when I go to nature for a walk, I always find inspiration. I always find this peace within. It's so easy. You don't need anything. So whatever is your preference, maybe some people do not have a chance to go to the nature because they live in the city center. But even if there is a piece of park, it's always good to find that connection.
That's right. And even if you just have, I know in the cities, they usually plant trees. So it's not that difficult to find a little bit of nature outside. Hug a tree. If you don't want to hug it and you don't want to look really weird, never mind the other people if you have that strength of doing it publicly. Otherwise, just touch a tree. That will also raise your vibration. We are in constant exchange actually with nature. We breathe in oxygen, and the trees give us the oxygen, and we give back with our exhale. So we're in constant exchange with nature and what we need. And also the food that we take in, the vegetables and the fruits, are also from nature. And it will raise your vibration. So I don't want to make this in a cooking class, but yes, this is how you raise your vibration as well. And by raising your vibration, you become more in tune with the universe, with everything that surrounds you. And this will obviously allow you also to become more intuitive and pick up on information and things, be it from your spirit guides, be it even from, let's say, from Teri, who sits a few thousand kilometers away from me, picking up information from her, or even picking up some information, some messages from your loved ones that are in spirit.
Beautiful. And strengthening your sensitivity, basically, this is what the nature can help you with, as Tatjana said. And also, because I touched on the subject of trying to have things too fast, sometimes, and this also concerns trust, because we want to see our dreams fulfilled. We want to see our achievements happen in the shortest time as possible. Tatjana, and you know yourself, we are both quite impatient people. We need to learn how to follow the natural cycles, because it makes life so much easier, and also can save you from these feelings and dips of desperation and stress, and thinking isolated from the universal force, from the God source, from the spirit, from your soul, because your mind, who wants to be sure always of what's coming up next and when it comes and how it happens. These things sometimes we cannot fully control. It's not possible. So we cannot fully control anything. Partially, yes, but not in full.
Exactly like in my example with the airplane, partially I was able to control it, but yeah, I couldn't avoid, I mean, I didn't know which plane, so I couldn't avoid the plane crash, unfortunately. Yes, and the patience, any farmer knows if you sow the seeds, you have to wait until it grows. You cannot just harvest it right away. So yeah, we have to wait. And we're coming to a natural end here, but I would like to end this with a quote from Paulo Coelho. Maybe you know about him or you heard about him. And he said, the two hardest tests on the spiritual road are the patience to wait for the right moment and the courage not to be disappointed with what we encounter.
Oh my God, that's beautiful. And exactly, not giving up too soon. So keep your minds focused and keep your heart and soul open. Follow your intuition and gut feelings and be in the right balance. Go to the nature often and keep watching us. Thank you for being with us and see you in the next episode. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.